clearly defining offensive roles. As I watch so many games, teams and seasons that I've coached, I really do a poor job on offense when I'm not clearly defining roles for my teams. I think sometimes our players think that every shot is equal. Every catch and shoot open three, every rim drive and finish, or any kind of every mid-range pull-up jumper has the same value to coaches. Yet we know as coaches that depending on who is taking that shot, the value of it is going to change for us. And so as we talk about clearly defining offensive roles, that first thing I would write down is this: not all shots are created equal. Help your players understand what it is that you want out of them on the offense side of the ball. One term that I love from Dick DeVenzio, who founded PGC Basketball, he talked about a player SCOT. SCOT. And he's taken two words right there and combined them together: a player scoring spot. So that's their SCOT. And I think every coach, we can do a great job of helping our players become better individually, which is also going to help our teams become more efficient if we begin to define player SCOTs, where we want to shoot from in different situations. I'll give you a quick example of that. One year when I was coaching down in Victoria, Texas, we had a really good team, lots of seniors, underachieved for sure, but going into that off season, we weren't returning a lot. Our best player was coming back, but besides him, he was going to need a lot of help from some guys that on the JV team. And in fact, his best friend was a junior, going to be a rising senior that next season. And just came to me and said, Coach, I know I played JV as a junior, only had a limited role on varsity. And really, he was more of our bench cheerleader guy. That was his role for varsity. He said, but listen, I know that his best friend's name was G. He's like, I know G needs a lot of help. What can I do this offseason to get better? And so we started looking at Zach and the positions that he would play for us his senior year. He was about 6'5", really long and lanky, athletic, but didn't love basketball. Like the only time he had really ever spent working on basketball was in season. And I learned that offseason with Zach. One of the reasons he only spent time working in season is because I had not done a great job defining for him what he could do on offense to make our team better. And so that spring of his junior year, we sat down and talked with Zach. Zach, really, number one, we're not going to run any plays for you. You're not going to be a main scorer for us. However, we're going to run a lot of ball screens next year. And as we run all these ball screens, there's two places that you are most likely going to shoot from. Number one, the rim on your sprints, the rim off of ball screens. If they try to double the ball handler or do something else, or Zach, even though you're not a 3-point shooter, we're going to run some ball screens inside the 3-point line. And so your pick and pop for us will be right about 15 feet. And even we knew on the right side of the floor at the 15 feet about the wing areas where he would become most dangerous. And so that off season into the summer, our plan for Zach, like as he went through workouts, he only got shots from those two spots. We also worked with him on offensive rebounding a lot because those are the three things on offense he's going to do: set screens, score from those two spots, and then crash the glass really, really hard for offensive rebounds and putbacks. And as we defined his SCOT and helped him understand that every shot was not going to be equal in the offense, he was actually able to blossom. And he went from not playing varsity as a junior to starting on varsity as a senior and ended up being first team all district, averaging a double-double because he became so deadly from those two spots and such a good offensive rebounder. And so coaches, we can do a great job as we clearly define these roles on offense for our team to help them understand their SCOTs, as all not shots are created equal. The second thing that I would do is help players understand that your best shooters are going to be taking the most shots. And that's got to be a focal point of our offense. Like we have to have some tough conversations with players, but help them understand, look, if in this season, if we're going to be as offensively efficient as possible, our best players have to take the most shots. And that's probably even going to mean for most of our teams, our best players don't have the best shooting percentage because their volume is going to be so high that their shooting percentage will be lower. That's also important for us to understand as coaches, that if all shots are not created equal and our best shooters are getting the most shots, their percentage will probably be down because taking 15 or 20 shots in a game is a lot different than taking 2 or 3 shots in a game. And again, having those open, honest conversation with your players is going to help your team move forward in that direction. So again, clearly defining roles on offense. Number one, not all shots created equal. Number two, best players, most shots, which might mean lower shooting percentage. And the third thing is this: your worst shooters, or those players that take the least amount of shots in a game, they should actually have the highest shooting percentage. That's because they are only taking those shots that you value the most as a coach. And that was one thing we did so well with Zach, was helping because he took fewer shots, but they were from the spots that we trained the most with him, he had a really high shooting percentage. And that helped us be more efficient. Zach didn't need 10 shots a night to score 10 points. He only needed 6 or 7 shots a night. And in fact, three or four of those shots consistently were off of offensive rebounds. So he was only getting about a shot per quarter out of our offense, but still averaged a double-double because we put him in positions, number one, where he had trained. And so he was more confident in those shots. And then also he could be more efficient because of the time that he put in. So we've got to help, as we clearly define these roles, we've got to help our players understand, look, if you take fewer shots, you must have a higher shooting percentage. Because a player who's only taking 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 shots a game for us and is only shooting 25 or 30% of the field, like that's wasting offense. You'd rather your best players get those shots because they're going to convert at a higher rate regardless. One thing that I've discovered in my last 4 years of coaching that goes along with this concept of clearly defining offensive roles that I think is going to be really good for your team is help them see great players running the same plays you run. Like we all know as coaches that there's very little that's new under the sun. And one thing that we did a really good job of here at Oklahoma City when I was at Cassidy High School was only running things that NBA teams ran. And no matter what your offense is, you can find NBA teams that are running the same thing you do or something similar. And there are great clips out on YouTube. Reach out. I'll help you find them if you're looking for some. But what we would do is we knew that we had players that were going to take a lot of shots. Just a few of them, 2 or 3 guys that were taking a lot of shots, and a lot of other guys that were going to have to set a lot of screens, we have to move a lot on offense, but never really have the benefit of scoring a lot of points. And so what we actually did is we took a lot of actions from the Golden State Warriors from like the 2015 through 2018 seasons when they had Steph and Clay and Draymond and then added KD to the mix at the end. So kind of, whatever through the 2017, 2018 season. And then what we began to do was we began to teach them plays by watching the Warriors play. We would go on YouTube, we would cut up the clips of the Warriors that were running the action we want to run. And what we would do is we would drop those clips of the Warriors in our group me for the team. And players would know, or we would help them know if it was changing from play to play, what player they would be. So instead of telling them, like, man, you're just going to set a lot of screens, what we said, hey, watch Zaza Pachulia. Right. Because even though like none of us probably want to be Zaza if it came down to it versus a Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, being Zaza in the NBA is better than not playing in the NBA at all. And so he began to see the role he would play by someone who's making a lot of money. And we had a couple of wing players that were pretty good playmakers with passing, but not with scoring. So we say, hey, on these sets, these actions, watch Draymond. That's the role you're going to play. And if you can be the best Draymond on our team, you're going to play more than others. And so clearly defining those roles doesn't just come from telling them what they can and cannot do, but clearly defining roles will also come from letting them know, hey, who's KD, who's Steph, who's Draymond, who's Zaza, who's Clay, what it is. And then all of a sudden, as they watch pro teams run those same actions, run those same sets, all of a sudden they're going to be more invested. We found that we spent less time in practice actually putting plays in because they were watching those clips so much in preparation. They already knew what to do when we got to practice. And so we could use more time to work on skill development. We could use more time to work on decision making. And so you have to clearly define those roles for your team if you want to be efficient on the offensive end. This week, sit down and begin to define those roles. I would take whatever your rotation is. If you typically play 7 or 8 players more than the rest, begin to write down the things, and I would say 2, no more than three things on offense that you will be at your best as a team if this player does. So you're starting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then your top 2, 3 players on the bench. Hey, if you do these 2 or 3 things really, really well, we're going to be more successful. And then begin to give them that information and ask them how they're doing on it throughout the course of the next couple of weeks. Give them examples when they do it really, really well. Let them know when they do those things well and show them what it looks like to do it well. And I'd say if you really are going to get excited about this and really want to take it one step further, I would go to players not in your rotation. And not just say, hey, listen, to play more, you have to be a better ball handler, better shooter. Because while those things are true, just because they improve does not mean they're going to earn playing time. And clearly defining a role for them may say, hey, listen, if you can do this one thing better than anyone else, your playing time will go up. Because for our players who are not really in the rotation, it's not just about getting better. It's about being better than the player in front of them. So with the guys and girls that are already in your rotation, yeah, give them 2 or 3 things to keep doing well on offense. So the 2 or 3 things that are most important for them to do. But those players who are not in the rotation and want the minutes and want an opportunity to help your team become successful, give them one thing. Hey, star in your role. We talked about a couple of weeks ago. Not everybody can be the star of the team, but everyone can star in their role. And give them one thing to be incredibly good at in practice to begin to earn more playing time in games. And then as coaches, we're going to have to put our money where our mouth is. We're going to have to actually give them the opportunity to play more often if they do those things. And more often might mean 2 or 3 minutes a game, but giving them opportunity to do those same things in game. If they can do it in game, hey, all of a sudden you might find out that you're a little deeper than you realize, or you'll know when someone gets in foul trouble or in certain situations, maybe a guy or girl that you haven't played as much, you could play some more. And as we clearly define these offensive roles with these different concepts, now all of a sudden there's more freedom in our offense. They might feel more constricted at first, but I found that like with more discipline or more focus, you actually have more freedom. So instead of telling someone, hey, listen, I'm going to limit you, it's like, no, I'm going to give you these 2 or 3 things to be great at. I'm actually freeing you up to spend more time working on only 2 or 3 things versus working on 5, 6, 7, or 8 different things to try to help make our team better. So coaches, to be more efficient the rest of the season, you must clearly define those offensive roles.